Have you ever wondered why many older people, seemingly full of vigor and energy, suddenly and quietly pass away, not even reaching the age of 82? The reason isn't heart disease, cancer, or tragic accidents. No, there's something much more subtle, yet remarkably underestimated. One specialist in men's health, who dedicated over 30 years of his career to helping the elderly not only extend their lives but also enrich them with quality, discovered something important. Over decades of clinical practice, working with thousands of patients and studying numerous research papers, he managed to identify patterns that often go unnoticed by most doctors. What if one of the most significant factors in longevity after 60 isn't blood pressure readings, cholesterol levels, or even physical fitness? It's something that older people rarely talk about and that many mistakenly reject due to shame, fear, or simply a lack of understanding. This video will reveal the hidden key to maintaining energy, independence, and mental acuity well into your 80s, 90s, and even beyond. And the most surprising thing is that it won't require expensive medications, grueling workouts, or complicated diets. This tool already exists within everyone, waiting to be awakened. Stay with us, because in just a few moments, we'll present you with simple, yet truly transformative steps that you can immediately implement in your life to regain lost energy and zest for life. And we promise that the final part of our narrative has the power to forever change your perception of the aging process. Now that you realize the importance of this hidden aspect of your health, let's proceed to identify one of the most insidious yet devastating threats faced by older people in the modern world. This is a silent epidemic, subtly undermining vitality, weakening the body, and ruthlessly shortening lifespans long before their natural end. We're talking about the loss of connection with physical pleasure. Observing patients who have crossed the 70 and 80-year mark, one can often notice a quiet sadness in their eyes, a resignation to the fact that life has somehow dimmed, become colder, and more detached. Over the years of medical practice, we've come to realize one of the most subtle yet detrimental changes that occur with age, the gradual disconnection from one's own body, from the physical joys that once filled them with energy and vitality. This problem isn't talked about openly. It's hushed up and glossed over. And yet, it's all around us, depriving men and women of their life energy, often without them even realizing what's happening. There's a dangerous misconception ingrained in society that intimacy, sensual touch, and sexual expression are the exclusive prerogative of the young. Once a person reaches a certain age, they're supposedly supposed to forget about this important component of human nature forever. Many older people, unfortunately, accept this lie as truth, believing that striving for or receiving physical pleasure at their age is inappropriate, shameful, or simply impossible. Some, faced with age-related changes in their bodies, lose confidence. Others can't shake off emotional wounds and past losses. Still others simply don't realize that intimacy is not only possible, but also necessary for maintaining health and vitality for many years. Most people don't suspect that giving up intimacy triggers a chain of negative changes in the body. The lack of regular stimulation leads to impaired blood flow to vital organs. The nerve pathways responsible for pleasure gradually atrophy. The hormonal background begins to change for the worse. Gradually, the body loses its stability, and this affects not only sexual life, but also mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Sleep becomes restless, mood deteriorates, and energy wanes. Over time, even the immune system weakens, increasing the risk of developing chronic diseases such as heart disease, dementia, and depression. We've repeatedly observed a pattern where people full of strength and energy gradually lose their zest for life. The reason lies not in physical ailments, but in the fading of the inner energy that sustains their existence. We can confidently say that physical pleasure and intimacy, both with oneself and with a partner, are fundamental components of human. Resilience. Rejecting this area of life due to prejudice, shame, or lack of knowledge not only deprives one of joy, but also shortens the years of life. However, don't despair. Returning to sensory experiences and awakening long-forgotten emotions can be a starting point for deep healing. It's never too late to discover your body's potential, which can be key to improving health, sharpening memory, and strengthening emotional resilience. What is the unique power of physical pleasure in protecting the brain, heart, and independence in the future? The answer to this question can radically change the perception of the aging process. Let's uncover the deep truth hidden behind the assertion about the importance of masturbation after 60 for achieving longevity. Years of experience working with patients who have maintained a sensual connection with their bodies testify to significant changes in their lives. Maintaining physical pleasure, including solo sexual activity, is not just a pleasant addition, but a vital foundation for good health and longevity. This statement may be surprising, especially if a person was raised in a culture where such topics are discussed with awkwardness and even shame. However, biological processes are stronger than social prejudices, revealing a completely different picture. After 60, natural changes occur in the body. Blood circulation slows down, hormone production decreases, muscle tone weakens, and neurological functions deteriorate. Regular masturbation can counteract many of these negative processes. When an elderly person indulges in sexual self-expression, even alone, their body reacts in an amazing way. Blood rushes to the brain, heart, and limbs, nourishing tissues that are subject to age-related changes. Endorphins, natural happiness hormones, flood the bloodstream, reducing stress levels and promoting restful sleep. Testosterone levels moderately increase, which helps maintain muscle mass, bone density, and emotional stability. All these factors are key to maintaining energetic aging. No less fascinating is the impact of intimacy with oneself on the brain. Advanced neurobiological research convincingly proves that moments of carnal pleasure activate a whole cascade of brain centers simultaneously, strengthening the neural connections responsible for memory, emotional stability, and cognitive functions. In other words, it's like an elixir of youth for the brain, maintaining its flexibility and liveliness. The author has witnessed how patients who have adopted this practice demonstrate amazing mental acuity, inexhaustible creative potential, and an optimistic outlook on the world, markedly different from those who have chosen the path of physical abstinence. However, beyond the obvious biological benefits, there is something much deeper. Solitude with oneself in adulthood is an act of recognizing one's own worth, an affirmation that the body still deserves care, tenderness, and pleasure. It is a bold challenge to the harmful stereotype that aging inevitably leads to decline. Instead, it is a powerful reminder that life can still be filled with vibrant colors, rich sensations, and a deep personal connection. This emotional harmony with oneself often becomes a catalyst for positive changes in many areas of life, from improving diet and renewing interest in social life to increasing motivation for physical activity and sports. When patients come to me asking if it is too late to revive the intimate sphere of their lives, I answer with gentle but unwavering confidence. It is never too late. The body may need more time, more care, and delicacy, but it is still capable of experiencing deep, healing sensations that enrich the spirit and have a beneficial effect on health, exceeding all expectations. It is quite natural to ask, if the benefits are so significant, why do so many older people face difficulties in maintaining this vital connection? The answer lies in a number of hidden but deeply rooted misconceptions, which we are going to examine further. We will talk about 3 common myths that deprive older people of vitality. Over the years of my practice, I have repeatedly seen how easily strong and energetic men and women fall victim to these silent misconceptions, gradually undermining their vitality. Often, they don't even realize it until one day they wake up feeling like a pale shadow of their former selves. These beliefs are not just harmless misunderstandings, but powerful invisible forces that cause older people to abandon one of the most effective sources of health and well-being. A deeply rooted and truly sad misconception is that with the onset of a certain age, physical pleasure loses its significance. It's impossible to count how many times I've heard the phrase, "I'm too old for this," uttered with a sad and resigned smile. However, the truth is that age doesn't deprive a person of the ability or need for intimacy and touch. It only transforms the ways this need is expressed. Abandoning this important part of oneself based on the belief that it is inappropriate is like deciding to live in a house but never turning on the lights. Survival is, of course, possible, but it misses out on a tremendous amount of warmth, color, and beauty. Another painful belief is the notion that seeking pleasure in solitude is somehow reprehensible. Many people grew up in an era when satisfying one's own needs was spoken of in whispers, with embarrassment, or treated as a moral transgression. These outdated notions can deeply penetrate the consciousness, creating layers of guilt that persist even into adulthood. But it should be stated with all clarity and compassion. Taking care of your own body is not something shameful. It's an important act of honoring your life, health, and spirit. A dangerous misconception also lies in the belief that abstaining from sexual activity somehow preserves vitality. In reality, the opposite happens. Systematic sexual activity, including individual practices, has a beneficial effect on the body, stimulating hormonal levels, improving blood circulation, and maintaining tissue health. Like muscles that atrophy without exercise, the organs responsible for sensual pleasures require regular stimulation to maintain their activity and tone. Perhaps the most damaging myth is that sexual health exists separately from the overall condition of the body. In fact, these aspects are closely interconnected, and modern science is only beginning to reveal all facets of this interdependence. Caring for one inevitably has a positive effect on the other, while neglecting one leads to the decline of both. Recognizing these false notions is an important step towards returning to a full and energetic life. However, knowledge alone is not enough. A clear and understandable strategy is needed to restore harmony with one's body, based on natural, comfortable, and safe methods. It is to the development of such a strategy that we must now turn. Now we move on to considering the key precepts contained in the fourth section. It will be about the recovery method, which is a sequential system for returning sexual energy. At the beginning of his practice helping older patients reconnect with their bodies, the author realized that simple encouragement was not enough. A clear and reliable path was needed. Not vague assumptions, but a concrete, implementable method that could be followed with confidence. This is how the recovery method was developed. This is a detailed process that takes into account the characteristics of the aging body. It is aimed at treating age-related changes with care, and at the same time restoring the important connection between mind and body, which often weakens with age. The first step is preparation. First of all, it is necessary to create an environment in which a person feels safe, comfortable, and free from outside interference. It is important to set a comfortable temperature in the room. You should choose a comfortable chair or bed and prepare a quality lubricant. These simple actions serve as a powerful signal to the body that its owner is important and deserves care. After a busy day, it's time for relaxation, a moment when haste and obligations fade into the background. This is not a sprint where speed is important, nor is it a monotonous repetition of familiar actions. Start with deep, cleansing breaths. Allow every muscle in your body to relax and your heart to slow its frantic pace. Imagine the tension, like fine sand, slipping through your fingers, leaving you gradually, layer by layer. This simple act of conscious presence in the moment can open doors to sensations that may have seemed lost forever. Then comes the phase of awakening sensuality. At this stage, a delicate exploration of those areas of the body that may have been forgotten or ignored in the hustle and bustle of everyday life takes place. The inner thighs, lower abdomen, chest area. The touches should be light, gentle, imbued with curiosity, not criticism or condemnation. It is important to pay attention to the slightest reactions of the body. These subtle responses serve as proof that the body is alive. It still strives for contact and interaction. Next comes the stage of targeted stimulation. Without any pressure or intrusive expectations, more direct and intense touches are gradually introduced, allowing arousal to build naturally, at its own pace. It's important to replace haste with slow, mindful movements, creating a depth of sensation that is often lost in the hustle and bustle. The goal is not to reach climax as quickly as possible, but to savor every moment of the journey that your body is capable of. Finally, there is the integration phase, a time for well-deserved respite and expressing gratitude for investing effort in your own well-being. You need to allow yourself to feel the fullness of life, however weak or strong it may be. It is in this moment of quiet recognition that healing takes root. This method does not involve chasing the past. It aims to accept your present self with all the wisdom, strength, and tenderness that come with age. And as soon as even the slightest spark of reunification with yourself appears, the enormous potential dormant within will become apparent. However, even with effective techniques, the path to healing is not always a bed of roses. There are common mistakes that can slow progress. Next, we will talk about how to avoid these mistakes that many older people make unconsciously in order to stay on the path to prosperity and vitality. Overcoming difficulties, what to expect, and how to succeed. Accompanying people on the path to recovery, the author always recalls that real changes rarely happen in a straight line. It is natural to encounter moments of doubt, disappointment, or even despondency. Such situations arise not from a lack of desire to heal, but from unconsciously falling into traps that complicate the process. Awareness of possible difficulties and knowing how to overcome them can radically change the situation, turning abandonment of the goal into a complete transformation of health and life energy. Often, a stumbling block on the path to sensual awakening is high expectations. Many older people embarking on this path naively believe that with a certain amount of effort, the old feeling of youth will return instantly. However, when the desired result is not achieved, they are overcome with disappointment. It is important to realize that the body has undergone age-related changes, and this is not a personal defeat, but only the natural course of life. In this context, success is not determined by the speed of reaching peak sensations, but by the ability to restore connection with sensuality, comfort, and a sense of the present moment. Even minor improvements indicate deep healing processes. Another serious obstacle is inconsistency in practice. Like strengthening muscles or developing flexibility, restoring a sensual connection requires regular attention and practice. Sporadic activities dictated by sudden mood are like watering a plant once a month in the hope of abundant flowering. You need to set aside time for classes 2 or 3 times a week, perceiving this not as a burdensome duty, but as a manifestation of care and respect for yourself. The body will definitely react to such kindness, gradually surprising with its capabilities. Another invisible enemy on the path to intimate harmony is the obsessive pursuit of results. Excessive concentration on achieving specific goals in the intimate sphere creates tension and constricts muscles, narrows blood vessels, that is, has the opposite effect to the desired relaxation. It is important to free yourself from the idea that each intimate session should end in a certain way and learn to appreciate the process itself. Even the slightest sensations of pleasure are small victories worthy of recognition and not a reason for self-criticism based on youthful memories. Often, a feeling of shame lurks in the depths of the soul, which insidiously undermines all efforts. Many men and women carry old, suppressed experiences that whisper, "This is indecent," or "I don't need this." If this voice makes itself known, it is important to meet it with compassion, not with condemnation. You need to remind yourself that the pursuit of pleasure is not a manifestation of selfishness or frivolity, but a way to honor the beautiful body in which a person lives. Overcoming these obstacles is not an easy task, but the result is worth the effort. Every step forward, every manifestation of patience and kindness to yourself strengthens not only sexual energy, but also general vitality, increases resistance to stress. As you gain confidence, you may feel ready for more, for a full restoration of health and life energy using simple but effective methods developed specifically for this period of life. In conclusion of this joint study, it is important to emphasize the fundamental truth. The right to prosperity has no statute of limitations. Physical well-being, health, and the capacity for joy do not diminish with age, but transform, remaining an integral part of human existence. Reconnecting with these aspects of life is not about chasing an illusion of youth, but rather an act of honoring the life force that continues to pulse within. It is an acknowledgement of the strength that has carried you through numerous trials and the spirit that refuses to surrender to circumstances. Observations show how individuals in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s rediscover a zest for life that seemed to have been lost forever. Along with this revival comes improved health, self-confidence, and a sense of fulfillment. Everyone deserves such an experience. It all starts with a conscious choice, a belief that opportunities are not exhausted, that dignity is preserved, and that life in all its aspects continues. It is recommended to start small, be patient, and treat yourself with care. It is important to remember that every step towards reconnecting with your body is a step towards a future filled not only with years, but also with a life lived to the fullest. Everyone's story continues to be written, and each person has the opportunity to rewrite it, filling it with the strength, dignity, and fullness they deserve to experience.